today we got an interesting video topic that I've wanted to discuss for a little bit now. I'm a Kentucky native, and I decided to kind of dive a little bit deep into our home state and see what all there is to the mysteries and the history, odd events that occur in Kentucky. So I compiled a iceberg, my first ever iceberg I've ever done, something small and enjoyable to watch. So I done my research and wrote down a script and everything. So hopefully I do okay with this iceberg. But let's dive into the first layer, shall we? In 1985, former Lexington narcotics officer Andrew C. Thornton II was smuggling cocaine in America after dropping some off in Georgia. During this period, 40 plastic containers of cocaine were dropped in the wilderness while Andrew abandoned the plane, which ended in his death. December 23rd, a black bear was found dead as it had eaten a large amount of said cocaine, which suffered from a drug overdose. The bear had eaten $20 million worth of cocaine during that time. Its stomach was stuffed with the drugs when they examined it. Later, the bear was taxidermied and pawned off where it now resides at the Kentucky for Kentucky Fun Mall. Part man, part goat. This legend claims its home in Louisville, Kentucky by a railroad bridge over Pope Lick Creek. Many stories explain how it gets its victims by hypnosis, voice mimicry, attacks from above the bridge onto oncoming vehicles, or wielding a bloody axe. Its origins differ as a circus freak who escaped or a farmer who reincarnated into the beast for satanic powers, as there have been some deaths at the bridge due to people exploring the location, which is protected by an 8-foot fence. There was a short film about this creature in 1988 by Ron, which upset locals, fearing it would welcome more trespassers. Several people have died on or near the property, which range from ATV accidents, falling to their deaths, or being struck by a train since 1988 till 2019. In 1833, the land that we know of as Waverly Hills was purchased by Mayor Thomas Hayes as a family home. Due to the location, Mr. Hayes opened up one-room school for his daughter to attend. Lizzie Lee Harris, who was hired to be a teacher, named the school Waverly due to her interest in the Waverly novels by Walter Scott. Mr. Hayes liked the name, soon named the property Waverly Hills. The spelling of the name was changed along the way, but the Board of Tuberculosis kept the name. Widespread tuberculosis cases in Louisville led to a building being built to help contain the disease for early cases. As a new hospital was being built, many of the patients were placed at Waverly for the time being. More floors were added as more patients would come in, which could hold more than 400 people, which the building process began in March of 1924. But a decreasing number of tuberculosis cases caused the building to no longer be of service due to the massive size of said building, which closed its doors in June of 1961. Waverly Hills went through many changes as Woodhaven Medical Services, a prison and/or apartment, and even plans to make it into a chapel, which some of these plans were canceled later on. This would change in 2001 as it became a haunted house attraction, with the proceeds going to the restoration of the property. Many stories have come out of Waverly being haunted or plagued with the misfortune of the ill patients, which still interest many people to this day. In August of 1955, something was stirring around a small farm. One night, as 5 adults and 7 children went to their local police station to claim that small alien creatures that arrived on a spaceship were terrorizing them in their farmhouse. They managed to defend themselves by shooting at them for hours around said property, as the little aliens would pop around windows and/or doorways to peer inside. Worry over a gun battle between the citizens, local police visited the home to see the broken windows and holes in the screens, but no evidence for UFO activity. An empty house sat as the family were carnival workers and packed up in the early hours to leave. The news got a hold of the story and later called the aliens little green men, who were 2 feet or 4 feet with pointed ears, claw-like hands, spindly legs, and eyes that glowed yellow. Many theories have since popped up about this event as owls were to blame or alcoholism, which the officials agree there wasn't any drinking going on there. Another sighting happened the same night as Bill Ray Taylor saw a bright light come across the sky, then disappeared, which many believe could have been a meteor. In 1889, Hatcher was married in Pikeville, Kentucky, to a young Octavia Smith. This marriage would be short as their son Jacob died after he was born, which was common during those times. This led into depression alongside illness, which affected Octavia as she laid in bed for months before slipping into a coma. She was later pronounced dead on May 2nd of 1891. As a product of the time, Octavia was not embalmed as this was a common practice at that time. In spring, where she was put to rest quickly. Several days later, other people began to have the same symptoms as Octavia, which caused by a bite of a fly, but would soon wake up from their illness. This worried the Hatcher family, as Octavia might have been buried alive. They hurried to unearth her as they discovered a horrific scene. Octavia awoke in her coffin, where she tried to escape with her bloody nails scratched on the coffin. She died from the circumstances, which she was reburied, where her husband James erected a large statue in her honor. Years later, the statue's arm holding her son, Jacob, broke off due to vandalism, which the baby statue lays on the ground as the family built a fence to protect her. I also did another video on this topic if you'd like to see that. Alright, on to layer 2. Crystal was a 35-year-old woman who lived in Bardstown, Kentucky with her boyfriend Brooks Huck and their 2-year-old son and her other 4 children. Brooks was the last one to see her, claiming she was playing games on her phone before going to bed. She was gone the next morning as her car wasn't in the driveway. 2 days later, her 2007 Chevrolet Impala was found with a flat tire, keys still in the ignition, with her purse and cell phone still inside the vehicle. The search began, but 16 months later, her father, Tommy Ballard, was out on a hunting trip with his grandson and his eldest son, where he was shot and killed. Police ruled out any foul play, but many people found it odd. In September of 2023, a local man was indicted for conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with physical evidence. This did not identify a victim, however. A few years passed as Brock, Steve Lawson, and Joseph Lawson were arrested with the conspiracy to commit murder. September 17, 2025, Brock was sentenced to life in prison, but no trace of Crystal has been found since then and is presumed dead by authorities. March 3rd of 1876, between the hours of 11 a.m. and 12, chunks of meat began to rain down in Olympia Springs in Bath County. The meat was never identified, but sprung different theories about the showers that day. Mrs. Crouch was the first to witness this event, as she was making soap on her porch. Her husband believed it was a sign from God, as it was snowing meat, he states. Another local claimed the meat had an offensive smell to it, like a dead body. 2 men tasted said meat, which they said could be lamb or deer. The meat was tested, which came up to be lung tissue, muscle, and cartilage. One of the theories is that vultures regurgitated said meat, which gave it the appearance of raining meat. But in 2024, Bath County opened up a temporary exhibit for people to see the meat shower. Rod Farrell was born on March 28th of 1980 in Murray, Kentucky. Having an unstable living situation by constantly moving, his mother becoming an exotic dancer to support them, and the apparent rape Rod claimed his grandfather did to him at 5. This developed Rod as he grew older, as his mother introduced him to a vampire role-playing game, Vampire the Masquerade. This allowed Rod to create his character, who was a 500-year-old vampire named Vesco. Tragedy would strike a family's home as 2 people, Naomi Ruth Queen and Richard Wendroff, were beaten to death one night with a crowbar before Rod burned the letter V on Richard. Their daughter, Heather Wendroff, was attempting to run away with Rod, as she described her home life, hell. Rod and his group traveled from some time as they went through 4 states, but one of the girls, Charity Kissy, placed a call to her grandmother, who informed police on their whereabouts. At 18 years old, Rod pled guilty to 2 counts of felony murder, explaining there was only one innocent person with them during the trip, who was Scott Anderson. Rod's lawyers tried to plead insanity, but Rod was sentenced to death. Each person got at least 10 to 17 years, except Rod and Anderson, who are now serving life in prison. But Anderson is eligible for release in 2031 after serving 22 years as of now. In Hamilton, Ohio, on April 15th of 1952, Donald Harvey was born, which he was the eldest out of 3 children. His parents were struggling tobacco farmers in Boonville, Kentucky, where they were local in the Baptist church as well. Donald's life was challenging as he was molested by both his uncle and neighbor during his childhood. He then dropped out of 9th grade, but earned his GED later on in 1968. After a burglary charge in 1971, Harvey enlisted into the United States Air Force, but 9 months later was discharged due to 2 separate attempts of suicide. After these nervous breakdowns, he came to terms with his homosexuality. At the young age of 18, Harvey started working in hospitals as an orderly in London, Kentucky. This is where he would commit his first murders. One of them was an 88-year-old stroke victim, Logan Evans, where he smothered him with a pillow in 1970. After Logan smothered feces on him, Harvey claimed he only killed them out of empathy due to them suffering. This would contradict him, as he would also state it was out of anger towards the victims. They all ranged with different ages, races, and genders, but had something in common, which was being cardiac patients. Harvey's reign is unknown as he hid under the radar, but his methods would be as many as arsenic, cyanide, insulin, suffocation, poisons, morphine, and or setting up infections with the use of injecting hepatitis B or HIV into their IVs. Harvey also poisoned his neighbor and some friends as well. 17 years passed as Harvey done his killing spree, hidden away from the public, but he slipped up in 1987 with an autopsy on John Powell. An investigation was put on Harvey after he was forced to resign due to him being caught stealing body parts for occult rituals. In August of 1987, Harvey pleaded guilty to 24 counts of first-degree murder as a plea agreement. In 1970, he was sentenced to life plus 20 years in Ohio. March 28th of 2017, Harvey was severely beaten, which caused him to die 2 days later by a fellow inmate, James Elliott. who had his own reason to beat Harvey, which some say it was out of jealousy due to the unfair conditions in said prison. In Wilder, Kentucky, a honky-tonk nightclub entertained locals but had a darker history than most would expect. The owner, Mackey, claimed that the building was originally used as a slaughterhouse in the 19th century, before becoming a roadhouse that changed over the years until 1978, where claims of it being a gateway to hell began. One spirit to haunt the building is Pearl Bryan, who was found dead in a field 2.5 miles away. Some believed it was a Satanist who killed her. Another claim is that a pregnant dancer, Joanna, committed suicide with poison in the 1940s after her dad murdered her lover, who was a singer at the club, by hanging him in his dressing room. Investigations have failed to prove these claims over the years, but this didn't stop the stories from being told, as Ghost Adventures done an episode of this place during their first season years ago. But during 2024, Bobby Mackey's was demolished as the owners planned to remodel the place and build a new building on top of the previous one. Alright, let's go to layer 3. In Lincoln County, Kentucky, Levi Boone Helm was born on January 28 of 1828. Even though he was a Kentucky native, as a young boy, his family and him moved to Missouri. He grew up showing off his strength and contempt for authority. As one event, he rode his horse into the courtroom as it was in session and arguing with the judge. In 1851, he married 17-year-old Lucinda Frances Browning, where he fathered a daughter, Lucy, but this didn't deter him from his heavy drinking and domestic violence, once being where he would ride his horse into the house to beat his wife. After a messy divorce that left his father bankrupt, Boone moved to California to search for gold. Before leaving, Boone asked his cousin to join him, but when starting to back away from the trip, Boone stabbed him in the chest before heading out alone. His troubles landed him in a mental asylum. Boone tricked the guards into letting him go on walks through the wood, which became his escape route. During his travels to California, Boone murdered several men in different fashions. To avoid justice, Boone teamed up with 6 men, who he stated to that he ate some or all parts of his victims. An attack by Native Americans forced his party into the wilderness, where they killed their horses to survive. One by one, the party reduced to Boone and a man named Burton, who shot himself after stating he couldn't go any further. Boone ate one of his legs and took the other on his journey. Other places where Boone had killed were California, Idaho, Oregon, and Utah. In Montana, Boone was apprehended. He was then hanged for his crimes, which he jumped off the box before the executioner could do it for him. 1820, a couple that settled near Hazard, Kentucky, Martin Fugit and Elizabeth Smith, were both carriers of the recessive methylhemoglobin gene. This resulted in their 4 children to have blue-tinted skin. While their other 5 children did not have this trait, with the limited gene pool alongside poor transportation, the family kept to themselves, which grew the MET-H gene. Descendants of the family continued to live in Troublesome Creek and or Ball Creek into the 20th century, where one family member was dubbed the Bluest, who was Luna Stacy, who lived up to the age of 77. A hematologist, Madison Colwyn III, studied the family. He diagnosed them with an enzyme deficiency, which affected the oxygen in the red blood cells. The last known descendant was Benjamin Stacy, who was born in 1975, but he soon lost his blue color, which stayed around his lips and fingertips. Surprisingly, Kentucky has some weird laws. Here are some of them. You can't throw flowers at a public speaker. Women in Owensboro have to ask their husbands for their permissions before buying a hat. Women between 90 or 199 pounds wearing a bikini could not walk down the highway without police protection. It's illegal to have an ice cream cone in your back pocket to lure away someone's horse. You're sober unless you cannot stand up, no matter how drunk you are. A woman to marry the same man 3 times is illegal. During the 1970s to 1990s, rumors spread in Rowan County, Kentucky, that Clack Mountain was an area for rituals for witches or satanic cults. This was probably a product of its time, as a satanic panic arose during this. Now, the location graffiti paints the rock walls when visiting the location. This location is 45 minutes away from me, and I've heard these rumors as well, and my dad and his family members who went to the Moorhead University that is located near the mountain. So I'm assuming this is a urban legend just being passed down to generation to generation. All right, let's go to layer 4. In February of 1933 in Tomahawk, Kentucky, a Pentecostal revival was being held when the people gathering offered a human sacrifice, which an elderly woman, Lucinda Mills, was picked to go first. Her son, John Mills, strangled her to death as they watched. They also prepared a fire to burn her body, but police came in and stopped them, either by being tipped off by a neighbor or heard the loud revival going on. 3 other women were picked before the interruption. A supernatural force was to blame, as it held the police back from intervening the strangling. John Mills was brought to trial and charged with killing his mother, where he was sentenced. This event is widely forgotten, as newspapers at the time spread around town. In January of 1976, 3 friends, Mona Stanford, Louise Smith, and Elaine Thompson, were out celebrating Mona's birthday at the Redwood restaurant, 30 minutes away from them. All clean fun, they recounted as they headed home. Suddenly, a bright red object appeared in the sky, which they believed was an airplane on fire. This object was bigger than 2 houses, which appeared in front of them. This thing seemed harmless as it hovered on the road, and then left them. As they drove down the road, a blue light flashed behind them, believing it was a patrol car. Louise's vehicle lost control as it accelerated rapidly, as the blue light was the same red light from earlier. Strange events began to happen as their eyes burned and their car panel lit up, but they soon found themselves 8 miles away in Hudsonville, on the outskirts, as an hour had passed during that time. 1:25 a.m. is where they arrived at Louise's trailer. They found red burn marks on the back of their necks and eyes which burned when Louise splashed water on her face. This led them to do a sketch of what they witnessed, as they also sought medical attention as their symptoms got worse. This story would hit newspapers, as well as the 3 ladies also doing a lie detector test, which they passed, and hypnosis testing. On January 14th of 2002, in Paintsville, Kentucky, a CSX engineer was working on a coal train en route from Russell to Shelbyana, Kentucky. The trailing unit alongside the 2 cars became severely damaged as it struck an unknown floating object. All electrical systems went haywire, alarms went off, their computer stopped working as well. They witnessed 3 objects were scanning the river for something, which they used spotlights for. They hovered 12 feet above the tracks. It was metallic, silver in color, with different colored lights attached to the bottom and middle. No windows either, or any openings they could see, as it was 18 to 20 feet in length and probably 10 feet high. The workers managed to escape, as they stated that the objects clipped their trailing unit and the first 2 coal cars. as it looked like they were hit with a giant hammer. When the workers arrived at Paintsville Yard, an army of workers came in to attend to the train. This stuck out as they were not railroad officials, so it was another group of people working on the damaged train. The CSX engineer was pulled to the side for questioning, as they were asked hundreds of questions and even mentioned getting medically tested before leaving. The man was denied to talk to his road foreman, as they confiscated his cell phone. They were led off the property as they were told to not tell anyone due to national security. They were sent to Martin, Kentucky for more questioning and drug testing before being let go. The CSX engineer went back to work only to find out that the train that was hit was gone. Henry was an American politician and military officer, being born in Bowling Green, Kentucky in 1876. In November of 1936, he was charged for the murder of his girlfriend, Verna Garr Taylor, which he was tried in Newcastle, Kentucky. This trial ended with a hung jury. Before Henry could retire, Taylor's 3 brothers shot and killed Henry at the Armstrong Hotel in Shelbyville, Kentucky, on September 20th of 1937. The brothers were acquitted for the act later on. This isn't the only time Henry was a suspect, as a woman by the name of Patricia Wilson's body was found in an elevator shaft at the Silbatch Hotel, where Henry was also staying during that time. People saw the two arguing before her death, but this case was still going on until Henry's death. In northern Kentucky, Rabbit Hash has a tradition of electing dogs as mayors, as a fundraiser for their historical society. This began in 1998 because no one wanted to run as mayor, so they decided to run dogs instead. Now, this tradition runs every 4 years to go alongside with the U.S. president election. Anyone is welcome to bring their dog, which can be voted on by donating money, which is $1. Bribes are encouraged as long as it goes with the historical society to maintain the town. The current mayor is Boone, a blue tick coonhound, in 2024. He garnered 14,000 votes, and his mayoral duties include advocating for water safety, Life Vest, raising funds, and meeting visitors in the town square. Past mayors include Wilbur Beast, a French bulldog, in 2020, Berneth Paltrow, a pit bull, in 2016, and Goofy, the first dog to hold mayoral office. Alright, so that was today's video. Sorry if it's a little janky. This was my first time creating an iceberg like this, and also I'm not the best reading a script. I usually like to ramble on about something, but this time I actually wanted to sit down and have a cohesive enough script so that I can get all the information right for you guys. But Kentucky has a lot more weirder stories and histories and events that weren't listed on this iceberg. I did go on Reddit and asked some people of these accounts and what should be put on this iceberg, but I only picked out a handful out of them just because this is the first iceberg. But if this is an interesting enough topic for you guys, I could add more to this iceberg and do a part 2 or even 3, depending on how much stories I could fit onto this iceberg. And if you all want to check this out, I summarized a lot of these stories because I didn't want to give too many details, because you guys might want to go into your own independent research on these topics. So you can go do that and have some fun with weird stories of Kentucky. But thank you guys for watching this video today. I had fun making it and researching these topics. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. And if you want more added to this iceberg, let me know in the comments. It does help my channel a lot. But until next time, thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.